All right, we are live for the Friday edition of the Mike and Mario Show, and excited to be back behind the mic with my man, Mr. Manico here. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to be back as well. We had a little hiatus of a couple of weeks, so it's always nice to be back.
Yes, sir. And so since then, man, as we were talking before, we went on air. So much stuff is happening to where it's like, to me, it's kind of mind-boggling just because I'm trying to connect all the dots. But then again, it's hard to, just because I think we have two levels of information on the surface as far as what we're being fed, and then of course underneath the stuff that mainstream media will never touch. And that's kind of where I try to stick to. And I think the recent events here with China, Saudi Arabia, and of course the oil situation. So between gold and oil, I think those are two subjects the mainstream media don't want to shine too much light on. But you do a good job of doing that, and I try to. So I guess right now, Saudi Arabia, China, they're making all types of deals. I think 34, deals have been signed. Not sure, they didn't disclose fully what they are. But is this a sign of what we should expect in 2023? Some type of major announcement, or what are you thinking?
Well, we've known that Xi Jinping was going to meet MBS in December.
Mhm.
We've been talking about that, but now it's happening, and it's just a natural move away from the petrodollar, I think, and also it's also symbolic, I think, and the fact that when Biden went to Saudi Arabia this summer, I think it was in June. It could be July, but I don't know. But he flew to Jeddah, which is on the Red Sea, and it's not really the capital of Saudi Arabia. The capital is Riyadh. And you saw that they did that knuckle pump, what it's called. And
Yeah.
I looked at that, and MBS, looked briefly at Biden, but he didn't really have too much. It didn't really look like a pally thing. But
Yeah.
Xi Jinping is different. He flew into Riyadh, which is the capital of Saudi Arabia, and he flew in on the 7th of December, on I think Tuesday night, and
Yeah.
I read that his plane was escorted and given a lot of pump by the Saudi Air Force,
Mhm.
and I think just that shows that this is real. This is a big moment, and the West does cover it, the mainstream media cover it, but they don't make it. They don't see the importance of it, and they still say, well, the Saudis still depend on the U.S. But I think, like you said, the mainstream will give the public what
They want to be fed, what they want to feed us.
what it is, but we need to dig a little bit under the surface. And I've been talking about the death of the demise of the petrodollar since 2016. One of my best videos is one of those, and I said at the time, it's not going to be like overnight. It's going to be like when you have a super tanker,
Right.
oil super tanker. When you change tack, you can't go like on a Boston whaler and do it. It takes time, and I think the Chinese have been, and the Russians have been preparing for this. The Chinese, they've built exchanges in Shanghai to trade oil in Yuan, to trade gold in Yuan, and we've spoken about this for the last few years, and now they're pushing, the deal here with Saudi and also the other Gulf countries, which Saudi Arabia basically, leads, is to deal in yuan, oil for yuan, and to make them, for these countries to deal in Shanghai. So I think it's all like it's all falling into place. And like you said, 23 will be very important. So I think that's probably one of the most important piece of headlines this week. Of course, other people are going to be looking at the World Football or Soccer World Cup and other things, distractions in the U.S., politics. You can tell me what's going on because there's so much. There you go.
No doubt. So, outside of some of just the headline pieces, as you mentioned, enter into a new era. And so I think that this sudden rush to close out 2022 with all these deals. So, as I mentioned here, this article here talks about a new era. And I think this is the one where it talks about Saudi media. Saudi media reported that two sides have already signed 34 investment deals in sectors including technology, energy, but gave little details. And
Yeah.
so those 34 deals, I would assume, have a lot to do with this current transition, on top of, I guess, Saudi's push to join the BRICS Plus, which will probably be announced in 2023 as well. So something definitely is brewing. I think it's more so about preparing the foundational pieces for whatever they're going to announce. And
Yeah.
the question will it be after there's some type of systemic event? Will this be their solution for the world shifting towards that next payment structure? Or is this just some typical steps that they're going to take regardless of whatever comes in
Yeah.
2023 is going to be the question.
I think it's just a normal step. They're not overthinking. I think they just want to be, yeah. I think the problem is, like, I tweeted out today a picture of FDR meeting the King of Saudi Arabia back in 1945
Mhm.
and starting this relationship. I think it was in somewhere in Egypt on the lake
Mhm.
off the Suez Canal.
Yeah.
And, I bet you back then the U.S. was a lot more respectful of the Saudis and stuff. And the U.S. is not only with the Saudis, and I'm not saying this about Americans, but the U.S. government, the Anglo-American Empire, they
Mhm.
treat other countries like they're their subjects. Uh, and I think that's what it's about.
Yeah.
I think Xi Jinping respects Saudi Arabia, and they look at Saudi Arabia as an equal,
Mhm.
while any American president, be it Trump, Biden, or Obama, they treat Saudi Arabia as like a below them.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's all about. And they, wherever we might have a reset CBDCs, I think that's beside the point. It's a
Mhm.
much bigger picture
Yeah.
here. And the other thing I would point out that the U.S. was telling Saudi Arabia not to do is to get involved with Huawei,
Mhm.
and they have. So that's very significant, I think, as well.
Right, right. And so I think a lot of that, what you just talked about, how I guess the U.S. has been viewed forever. I've all my life I've grown up hearing about exceptionalism, where the U.S. is always the greatest nation on the face of the earth. We, and I guess everybody else is subservient to us. And it had everything to do, I think, with the petrodollar system. The fact that the Federal Reserve note, okay, that system has been the primary. It's been the bread and butter for us, meaning U.S. citizens here, that we have enslaved the world with. And so as that's changing now, I think the narrative is also changing. And I think Saudi Arabia is going to be the final, I guess, nail in the coffin as to this whole shift away from the petrodollar system.
Yeah.
And one of the things, I guess you mentioned also the exchange. I want to bring that up as well. Article where let me see if I can grab it real quick. About President Xi recommending that they settle energy on in the Shanghai exchange. So that's definitely a pivot from the typical methods of which
Yeah.
they do business with the petrodollar
Instead,
system.
instead of trading on the NYMEX, which is part of the COMEX CME, they trade the crude oil futures. That's huge.
Yeah, this is going to be big. So this article here gives more information, but it just quotes Xi and just talking about how basically with the Gulf Corporation Council, how he's encouraging them to do more of their energy settlements, as it says here, Shanghai Petroleum and National Gas Exchange. And then also here it talks about China will also establish bilateral investment and economic cooperation working mechanisms to carry out local currency swap cooperation and deepen their digital currency cooperation as well. So that sounds like a currency shift in and of itself.
Mm.
So yeah, so currency swaps and their digital. So that whole digital currency cooperation lets me know that there's going to be some interoperability between the digital Yuan and whatever the
The
Saudi
other,
Arabian real, digital real. What up?
the other thing I noticed, one of their deals was for a huge construction project in Saudi Arabia, and
Mm.
Chinese, they've whatever you might want to say about the Chinese Communist Party or everything, but they've brought hundreds of millions of people out of poverty in the last 30 years.
Mhm.
And they built like they've got cities that you never knew about, like Wuhan, for example.
Yeah.
When I learned about Wuhan in the beginning of 2020 with that thing,
Mhm. Mhm.
I never heard of it, and it's a 11 million people metropolis. So I think China is ready to help Saudi Arabia do that. That Saudi Arabia just started building that I'm not saying I like it, but is
Mhm.
that Line City, which is
Yeah,
going to cost $1 trillion in the desert.
yeah.
I'm sure the Chinese will probably be involved in helping with that.
Oh, no doubt. And of course, they're going to probably end up using the last remaining of their dollar reserves to pull that off while they still can put those dollars to use
Yeah,
before.
before it becomes the purchasing power drops massively. The other thing,
Exactly.
doing dealing with the Shanghai oil and gas exchange
Mhm.
is that a lot of countries are going to realize, why do we need to hold all these dollars and treasuries if we're going to be dealing directly with China? And
Mhm.
yeah, and I'm not saying it's going to be overnight, but we've already been seeing that. I think Chinese reserves of treasuries have gone from 1.4 trillion to
Mhm.
just under a trillion or
Right.
thereabouts.
Right.
So, in other countries as well, it's just going to drop off. It's going to be in the next 2, 3 years. We're going to see a huge difference, and it's pretty much what happened to the British after World War II, especially.
Mhm.
A lot of their colonies used to hold sterling balances, and as the British Empire kind of faded away, they moved away from sterling, and they didn't hold as much sterling reserves. They started holding dollar reserves, and I think that's the way it's going to be as well. But it might be a bit more diversified. It might be more, more Yuan reserves, more ruble reserves, or more South African rand reserves or rupee reserves. It's
Yeah.
going to be a more balanced or multipolar world, I guess.
Yeah. Now I can see, like, of course, from this past summer, Putin talking about a currency basket, and so if they were to take that same currency basket structure and mimic the current or the Dixie basket, where the dollar is the predominant weight portion of that, and so I wonder, like, how will they end up breaking that up? Because I would assume, I don't think China and
Yeah,
Russia would definitely want to have it to where China has more of a say so than Russia, just because of their partnership. So
yeah.
will it be a joint Russian ruble and yuan, and then everything else
Yeah.
under that type of thing, or what?
I don't think they're gonna go to build you know a like an equivalent to the dollar index. I don't think
Mhm.
they care. All
Mhm.
they want to do is trade with each other
Yeah.
and make sure that. And if you have to realize that you only really have to exchange, let's say, gold
Mhm.
with each other if you build up a big balance
Mhm.
of, let's say, China builds a huge balance of Indian rupees.
Mhm.
That means that India is inflating too much. So
Yeah.
what the Chinese will do is says, we want gold for those rupees, right? That's
Mhm.
what it's all about. And that's why I think, yeah, I don't think they will want to have a yuan index or something like that. And yeah, they just want to trade,
Yeah.
and I think countries, hopefully, they will be more disciplined because that's how it used to be. Let's say Russia starts inflating too much and they buy too many things from abroad.
Mhm.
Those countries are going to have huge reserves of rubles, and they're going to say, they're printing too much because, and that's what happened, with the U.S. in the '60s and '70s, and
Yeah.
that's why the French wanted to get their gold, and then Nixon closed the gold window.
Mhm.
So they'll just have to work something out, and maybe it won't. Hopefully, it won't be too organized. And
Mhm.
why do I say that? Well, because when you organize it too much, you always have to have a country that's in charge, and
Mhm.
I think that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, it definitely will be interesting. So let's. Speaking of which, we can't exclude Russia because they're still in the mix, and so as of today, the whole price cap. So it looks like the G7 plus have come out with the fact they're going to say $60 a barrel, and so Putin basically says, we may cut production over the West price cap, and as a result of that, it's going to send the oil prices a lot higher.
Probably,
And
and I saw another article today that the Russians are selling oil to Asia,
Mhm.
and uh, above $60, and
Yeah.
they're using the Russians are shipping the oil themselves to
Mhm.
Asia and insuring it themselves because the key about this European price cap is that the European insurers, i.e., the Lloyd's of London,
Right.
really, who insures, they will only insure oil from Russia if it's
At
bought
that
at
cap.
dollars. It's not going to work.
Hmm.
You know, the EU price cap. It's just another big mistake by our Western leaders.
Yeah. Now, I guess as a part of that Zotan article, where talking about gold and how it's eventually Putin's going to decide to leverage or utilize, gold the way he did when he had first announced the central bank buying gold for 60
Yeah,
was it $60 a barrel, 60 rubles a barrel, something like that. That price stipulation that he put up. And so, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think in 2023, gold will be one of those primary subject matters that will be linked to the price of oil in some capacity because Russia will do it because of this sanction narrative and they're being
yeah,
forced to do that, you think?
yeah. And I read that Zotan article,
Hmm.
and I did a video about it. And what he talked about is that a lot of the Russian oil will flow indirectly to the U.S. and it
Hmm.
will be added to the strategic petroleum reserves.
Yeah.
And that Russian oil is Urals crude. And what Zoltan said, why would Russia want to sell their oil to the US indirectly at $60?
Hmm.
So, what they can do, or Putin can do, according to Zoltan, is price the Urals barrel of oil for around a gram of gold, which is around $60 right now. And what that will do is that that will drive the price of gold higher because if you want to buy the Russian oil, you need gold.
Hmm.
And I think it would be a really clever move, probably the kind of move that Putin would do because he's a chess player.
Right.
Biden, I don't know what he plays with, you know, not probably checkers or something even, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's really an interesting point, and we'll see. Is it the reason why I hold gold? No, but it could drive the price higher. Like he said, it could double
Uh-huh.
because you could get Putin could sell 2 barrels
Hmm.
for a gram. But what that will do, that's getting oil for half price. It will make everyone around the world want gold.
Hmm.
You can only buy the crude with gold, so
Hmm.
that will drive the price of gold a lot higher.
Yeah.
And as someone said, why would Putin sell 2 barrels of
Barrels
oil
of oil.
for only $60? But it's not $60. He's selling it for gold, and he
Hmm.
knows that. He said in the last few years that the dollar is doomed.
Right.
So he's a stacker.
Hmm.
I'm sorry to say. I know a lot of people out there hate Putin, and I don't have any like. I just look at the guy and see the way he thinks. I'm not
Right.
saying I love him or hate him, but I think he's doing the right thing. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's quite interesting. Like you said, 2023 will be an interesting year.
I think, if that was to come to fruition, that would literally be a checkmate type of move because you couldn't deny the role of gold as the standard, and especially if you're pricing oil in it to the point where the USD a denomination of whatever the price is will become irrelevant. So
Yeah,
that will be the
yeah.
ultimate
The
reset. I
other,
think that the West
yeah,
must avoid.
the other thing Zoltan says is that the bullion banks, they've been used to, throwing a lot of paper at the gold and silver market. And but what this might do is that it might put a spanner in that because what it means is that you need real physical gold,
Mhm.
and it could unravel. He said it could be dangerous for the Western too big to fail banks. And I think that's why we've seen gold rally lately.
Mhm.
And because I think the writing's on the wall, and the paper game is, basically Putin is saying that we want real money for our oil, not US dollars.
Right.
So there you go.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting, but I think everything is in place. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna share with you my little visual aid from a couple of months ago, just to show how I was anticipating, and of course, it's still early, but how 2023, put those question marks there, will be something that I think will be written in history books in some capacity. So we'll see. But all right, so here's a question from Mr. Chris. Appreciate you, man. We got a couple articles here, but we'll jump on this. It says, when the Fed does pivot and eventually drops rates to zero, will there be 30-year mortgage rates settle? Where will the 30 rates mortgage settle at? Thanks. What are your thoughts on that? I still have that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Go
The Fed looks to be doing a little. There will be probably a soft pivot on the 15th of December. I think that's when they've got a 2-day meeting, 14, 15. They will only raise rates by 50 basis points instead of 75. If they pivot completely and start cutting rates, I don't see them going back to zero. They can't. And if they do try to go to zero, you would see the dollar destroyed. And the way that would be reflected would be in the gold price out of control. You wouldn't be able to get gold. So I'm not sure. So I think the 30-year mortgage rate is going to stay relatively high compared to the last, I don't know, since 2008, 9. So
I see
a 30-year rate mortgage go down to 2 or 3.
Yeah, I see. I would imagine to see a pause, not necessarily a pivot. So they'll probably get to certain, certain figure sometime next year, and just try to keep it at that level. And if something breaks or cracks, I would assume that the banking sector, the credit market, will probably seize up to where, as far as the typical rates are going to probably go way higher, just to accommodate for the absolute failure of the banking sector. So I don't see there being, I don't see the real estate industry being something where people going, oh, let's go buy houses because it's going to be cheap. No, complete opposite.
The thing about the 30-year mortgage rate, Chris, is that it's based on the longer term treasury yields, like the 10, 20, and 30-year. And unless the Fed cuts rates to zero and then starts doing QE, because they can control the short-term rate when they move the Fed funds down to zero, but they can't control longer-term rates. The only way they can control longer-term rates is through doing a lot of QE. And they'd have to probably do like QE that we've never seen before, because it's getting bigger and bigger. And that's why I said then the dollar is going to be toast if they do that. So
yeah, speaking of that, QE like we've never seen before. I talked a little bit about BlackRock, how they're saying that what worked in the past, will not work now, referring to how distorted the central banking, just policies have been, to where it's going to take a way lot more to try to calm things down if they even can try.
Yeah,
but
that's why I said it. They might be able to cut rates back down to 3.
Yeah,
and that's about it. And
yeah,
then mortgage rates could come down. I don't know. They're around 7% right now. The 30-year is 6.5.
Yeah,
they could come down to 5.
Yeah, but then again, overall housing market in of itself, the prices will definitely continue to fall. So, people will probably hold off and want to try to buy at a later date, therefore forcing rates down further. All right, let's get into a little bit of UK, man. That you sent me that headline. UK Statistics Officer cancels the PPI release, and so you said that's not too common, but what are they trying to hold off on?
That's unheard of. It's like them can't. The thing is, this PPI was coming out on the 14th next week, and on the 15th, the Bank of England is going to decide, probably raise rates. So they've canceled this. They didn't delay it, and I went through the story, and it really feels like we're falling into a banana republic scenario where governments don't want to put out the statistics. But according to this ONS, which is the Office of National Statistics, they made an error from January this year to, there you go. They made an error of 1.8% a month. To me, it seems more like they're trying to keep that number down. And now it's all coming out. Maybe someone from the ONS leaked that. And why would someone leak that? Well, because like recently, for example, the NHS, which is National Health Service nurses, they asked for a 15.1% pay rise. CPI is 10.1. And even at the ECB, the people, rank and file people who work at the ECB, they're thinking of going on strike because of rising prices. So maybe someone at the ONS, like not a top person there, but a number cruncher said, this is rubbish. They're tinkering with the numbers and we're not getting a pay rise. And so probably they leaked it to someone and they had to come out ahead of it and say, oh, there was a mistake. And we underestimated this output PPI by 1.8% a month. That's huge.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, despite that, the pound is up today against the dollar, but the gilt yields are up. So it just goes to show that how things are, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, on this side, whether they're padding the stats over there, trying to make things look better than what they really are or not. Here we have the pension bailout.
Oh yeah, I saw that. 36 billion. And
so 36 billion, man. That is crazy.
We had a pension crisis here in September, October, right? Do you remember that? A LDI, the Bank of England had to come in with, I think, 15 billion pounds of QE. But here it's Biden coming in with 36 billion. But I don't know if you've read the whole story.
I did.
It's supposed to cost as much as 90 billion eventually. So even the headline is misleading.
Yeah.
Or like 90 billion. And it's just such a bad precedent because now that they bailed out this central states pension fund, every other pension fund out there in the US is going to be saying, you bail them out. Why can't you do that for us?
Right. And also that 86 billion, that was a part of the American Rescue Plan that was, they squeezed that in there, but it didn't get talked about because there was so much other stuff going on top of that, to where I guess the remaining 50 billion or so, it's going to be a fight for that to spread it throughout the country. And so once again, that's probably maybe 2 or 3 different pension funds in comparison to, it says a total of 200 will be needing some help in the near future. And what they're putting out there now, they're saying it's only going to last to 2050. And I'm like, between now and then, we definitely want to have we're going to have a different monetary system. So that stuff will not be sufficient whatsoever. So any way it go, that stuff is going belly up. So it's just unfortunate, but it was,
Biden said, it's unfair that you work all your life and your pension is you lose your pension. But life is not fair. And why is this happening though? Well, because we've had almost 15 years of zero interest rates, and these pension funds have what's happened, I think, and I'm not a specialist, is that the people who have retired in the last 15 years, they were promised 7-8%. So what they've done is they've taken from the people that are paying in, and the investments that they've invested in as a whole hasn't paid enough to cover this 7-8%. And that's why they're all failing. And it's the same thing in the UK with the LDI. So you have to really blame the Federal Reserve, central bank. They manipulated rates to zero. You have to blame the government for increasing the deficit. And yes, what this says to me is that they're gonna hyperinflate. They're gonna keep paying these people out.
Right. And that's the thing. Over time, it's going to purchase less and less to where they're going to start demanding, increases in the payouts just because they're not buying enough. So it's a continuous cycle of nothing until
these people, the people who are going to benefit from it, and I can understand that they would feel hard done by, not getting a pension. They're going to get everything, and they're not active. They're not working, and what are they going to do? They're going to spend it. That's going to create even more, and they're not producing anything. So this money is going to be coming out of thin air into the
economy. Right. Oh, man. All right. So what we got? Come on. Let's get to some questions, man. I see some back and forth in the chat. Feel free to throw out some questions. It's been a while since we've touched on anything. So feel free to throw out some thoughts, ideas, suggestions, lots of subjects. We just want to touch on 3 or 4.
Here, Auto Child auto child tax credit coming back? Question mark. Low blood pressure. What's the auto child tax? I don't know what that is.
Oh, I think so. California right now, they're handing out basically, it's like, just stimulus checks in a sense. It's a way of trying to utilize the, having children as a way of giving people allegedly some cash back type of situation. So I think California has something right now, $1,400 for whatever their child tax thing is. But on the federal level, I don't see that happening no more, just because it would be the equivalent of a stimulus check. I don't think they're into doing that right now. So
yeah,
I don't see that not coming back no time soon. The next form of a stimulus might be in a CBDC form. Go ahead.
Pablo Pina says, I thought Mario maybe Mario would wear a Brazilian jersey today, like the Brazilian football team. Well, Pablo, I mean, the older you get, the less important these kinds of events are. But yeah, I'll keep an eye on how Brazil does. I think they're playing Croatia today, but I don't have a Brazilian football team shirt or jersey.
Yeah, I haven't been following that.
It's 1-1 right now, actually, and they're playing extra time. So yeah, it's 1-1.
Here is a question here from Mr. Carl. Says, what would you all do if technological advances has decreased the value of people globally? Tell me, please. What would you all do if technological advances has decreased the value of people?
Well, I think that's always happened, in the last 100, 200 years. It started out with the Industrial Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say a blacksmith in the late 1800s, early 1900s, a lot of blacksmiths probably lost their jobs, but
mm-hmm.
maybe they went to work as a mechanic. I think people, in technology, because of the automobile, and technology does hurt some old world jobs.
Right.
And I think it's all about adapting. Look, I mean, I'm an example of it. I started out in the financial markets. We didn't have the internet in the late 80s, early 90s, and we did everything by the phone. We did have some computer screens with some prices. And then eventually, and people were trading on the exchanges. I could call people in the pit, and then eventually went all on screen. And eventually, the business kind of was not there. And then what did I do? I started my YouTube channel about 6-7 years ago, talking about, things that I know. So you have to adapt.
Right.
It is hard. Not everyone can do it. But
right.
I think the key is not to think, that's it.
Right.
The key is to try to adapt. I don't know what you think about that.
Right. No. So not only do you adapt, but also you got to improve your overall skill sets. Like, as one industry closes, a new one starts. And so it's just adjusting to that and finding ways of, leveraging value out of it. And so right now, headed into the AI robotic realm, they've already told us that, most of the jobs that are repetitive are going to be taken away. Then what? So you got to figure out how to adapt. And, it's all, I think the best and most interesting opportunities will come in community, being able to relate to people, connect with people one-on-one. That's something that I think the AIs and robotics cannot do, as far as feeling human empathy and being able to connect with people face to face. It's going to be something that creates opportunity. So it can be bad for those, but then good for others. So it all depends on how you look at it. I think the more entrepreneurial minded you are, the better it'll be for you. So that's just me. All right, what else we got? Any other questions you see? Let me see here. Trying to chat off too many score posts. A lot of people talk about soccer.
Yeah, apparently it's penalties.
What it means is bigger homeless camp for people around the world. We got 75,000.
One song. Do you think the U.S. can replenish the strategic
oil reserves?
I think they can, but it's going to drive the price of oil a lot higher.
Yeah, and that's where, apart from the strategic petroleum reserves needing to be refilled, is like being, I guess, absolute necessity. It's like, okay, at this current moment, it was intentionally drained for a reason. And so I think it was also geared towards that net carbon zero push. That's why I think initially it was probably because a lot of stuff was going over to Europe. So will they get it done? I don't really think so. I wouldn't hold my breath.
UK financial preparedness. Do you think they're engineering some kind of reset and
Oh yeah.
distracting us with the World Cup. Well, that's the thing. I'm not distracted by the World Cup. I think I only watched one game,
Mhm.
Brazil, the last game Brazil played a little bit,
Yeah.
and all I do is follow the scores online. But there are a lot of distractions out there aside from the World Cup.
Right.
I mean, loads of other stuff in the U.S. I don't know. The New York State said that the Trump organization committed fraud. Everything going on.
Yeah, and that's the whole CBDC talk. Like the Fed pilot announced 2 weeks
Yeah,
ago, and then we have in Indonesia the pilot is rolled out, and so they're
Nigeria
working
as
hard.
well. Nigeria as well. I saw your video
Yeah,
there, and
theirs
then
came out earlier in this year, but
yeah,
it hasn't. People haven't really messed with it that much.
the other thing that has distracted people is all this FTX. Uh, you know,
Right.
uh,
This Sam Bankman fraudster and how he denied he's not going to appear before Congress.
well, they might have to subpoena him.
Right, and so apparently he ignored the request. So, and of course, Maxine Waters said that they're not going to do it. So it's like, okay, what are they trying to hide? Yeah,
Ed Hammond says, "Robot Mario, they don't need us." I guess they could, yeah, they could kind of do a Mario AI and put a sub.
yeah. The digital avatars is going to be real. Like, there's so much deep fake stuff out there now, man. I don't know what to believe. Like,
Well,
it's
you
it's.
guys, this is me here. Don't worry. Mike,
I'm me as well.
yeah.
Oh man. All right. So let me see. We have 36 minutes, man.
Silver's looking promising, says Pablo Pina. Yeah, I mean, silver's up 2% today. It's at 23.52, the
Mm-hmm.
spot price, and I think the close last year is 23.28. So actually, silver's up on the year now, year to date.
Yeah.
Gold is at 1800. I think we closed last year at 1820. So actually, silver now is up on the year to date, while gold is slightly lower. But the Nasdaq is down about 26% year to date.
Yeah.
So to all those people who've been saying gold and silver are not a good store of value, take that.
Ed says we can't all be social workers.
Yeah, that's right.
Good point there, man. All right, man. So we 37 minutes, Mario. I think we got a chance to cover some of the most relevant topics, man. I guess
Oh,
so. We
there's
have
another topic, distraction. Yeah.
what?
Uh,
What?
Michael Otto. Yeah. Harry and Meghan on Netflix. Yeah, that's a very big distraction. I'm not gonna watch it. I haven't watched it, but it's ridiculous, But yeah, there's all these things. And I
Yeah.
think here in the UK, the other distraction we've had recently is the health minister during COVID. He
Mhm.
had to resign because he had an affair. He's gone on this reality show, and it was the only thing people talked about, you
Yeah.
know. And is it any wonder? And I'm not trying to be big-headed, but you can't help people when that's
Mm.
what they care about.
Yeah, here's a question here. It says, Michael Mario, do you think it would be a big mistake for them to arrest President Trump? I think if they were to try to pull that off, man, and have that guy walk out in handcuffs,
So
this country would go into a complete revolution, man.
why did he say that? Arrest President Trump? Who's trying to arrest President Trump?
They're trying to through this whole tax situation, as you mentioned even earlier, they're trying to bring him down. And so if they could try to pin anything on him as the ultimate diversion and distraction, I
Yeah,
think it will be their dream to be able to arrest a former president, like have him in handcuffs. Because to my knowledge, I don't think that's been something that
yeah,
this country's ever seen before.
yeah.
So to have him in handcuffs would definitely be the icing on the cake because
Oh,
this
yeah.
country would go crazy.
Well, this is part of we're in the fourth turning,
Hmm.
and the last fourth turning was in the early 40s, World War II. Prior to that, it was the Civil War, and before that was the Revolutionary War.
Hmm.
And I think Nostradamus. I don't follow that very much, but some people are saying that he predicted a civil war in 2023 in the US. I'm not sure how he knew about the US, but maybe it's like the symbology, the
Yeah.
major country. So that's what I have to say about it. If they arrest Trump, the country's gonna fall apart. Unfortunately, it's so divided.
Yeah. Oh
I'm
my
not.
goodness.
Yeah, I think it will be. It'll be a bad thing.
Yeah. So once again, 2023 is going to be more than it's going to have its events in it, man. But beyond that, I think everybody who tunes in to alternative media, particularly you and myself, we've all been preparing for something and taking incremental steps along the way. Of course, getting your weight up, every other aspect of your life, making sure that you are somewhat shielded from the complete destruction of the global economy, which is underway right now. So, yeah. All right. So let's guys close out. This week. Anything? What's coming up in the next week? So we have the Fed next week, right? The
Uh,
Reserve,
yeah, I think the Fed,
14.
yeah,
Yep.
14,
So
15,
50 basis
14,
points.
15, yeah. And
So 50 basis points. How do markets respond? Will they, stock market will going to
I
shoot
think
up?
the markets will respond more to what the comments that come out, and then the press conference, what Powell says. That's
Yeah.
how they will react. And yeah, the markets don't look very good, the stock markets right now. And the yield curve, the treasury yield curve is very inverted. I think it hasn't been as inverted since the early 80s, when you had the Volcker rate hike to 20% and the double dip recession.
Yeah. So CPI Tuesday, rate hike on Wednesday. So appreciate you, Norm. Well, we'll have more to touch on, of course, all the other things as they unfold. But yet, keep an eye on the energy price and, of course, metals price, because I think that's going to be some true indicators as to what's really happening behind the scene.
Yeah. The other thing I would say, don't worry too much about the fluctuations in prices. Just keep stacking. Personally, that's what that I would don't worry, unless of course you're trading paper and you're highly leveraged. But that's not what we are all about, right, Mike?
Right. Not at all, man. Not at all. Well, all right, my good people. As always, it was great to connect with you guys this Friday. Hope you had a great week and have a great weekend. And of course, continue to do what you do best: stack, prepare, and get your prayer game up as well. And of course, holiday season. Enjoy it, family, friends, everything in between. So, be back at you guys next week. Enjoy every day and be blessed. See you guys later. Peace.